all rested, all teas and coffees done. Now for the second roundtable, chaired by Professor Michael Semple, with Mohammad Umer Daudzai, Abdullah Khenjani and Professor Nazif Shahrani. Professor Michael Semple is a research professor at the Senator George J. Mitchell Institute for Global Peace, Security and Justice at Queen's University, Belfast. Michael chronicles the Afghan conflict with a central focus on his research into the political culture of the Afghan Taliban movement. Michael participates in the Peace Rep Research Coalition, which develops policy insights on global conflict. He also serves as research analyst on political and civil rights in South Asia for Freedom House and its Freedom in the World Global Report. Michael presents the Mitchell Institute podcast, Taliban, Turbans and Smartphones. He is a regular contributor to several Afghan television stations and is thus one of the few Western commentators to broadcast directly to the Afghan population in the vernacular. Michael has a long history of engagement with policymakers in the United Kingdom, the US, Europe, Afghanistan, South Asia and the United Nations. Mohammad Umer Daudzai. Mr. Mohammad's career in the last 2 decades of diplomacy includes serving twice as President's Chief of Staff, as Minister of the Interior, twice as Envoy to Pakistan, Envoy to Iran, as President's Special Envoy for Regional Consensus Building. Earlier, having completed a Master's degree in Development Studies at Victoria University of Manchester in the United Kingdom, he worked for 2 leading human rights organisations, Save the Children and later with the Swedish Committee for Afghanistan. Then he joined the UNDP in Islamabad and later Geneva. He attended most of the high-level negotiations between the UN and the Taliban and was involved in anti-Soviet resistance in the 1980s, giving him the opportunity to get to know most senior Afghan leaders. His work with Save the Children and the Afghan refugee camps provided him with the opportunity to develop deeper understanding of the Afghan and Pakistani social fabrics. He attended the Doha Back-Channel meeting in late January 2016, where he met the Taliban's political representatives. He organised the Peace Lawyer Yoga in 2019. He also accepted President Ghani's invitation to head his campaign as presidential candidate in 2019. That's only half of it, I've abridged it. His memoir, Uncensored, The Downfall of Afghanistan, is published in English, Pashto and Dari. Buy it. Abdullah Khenjani is the head of the political bureau of the National Resistance Front. Prior to the fall of the former government, he served as Senior Deputy Minister for the State Ministry for Peace, playing a significant role in the Doha peace negotiations with the Taliban. He also served as Editor-in-Chief for One TV Media Afghanistan, an independent news outlet that contributed greatly to Afghan political and social discourse. A frequent and insightful commentator on local and international news outlets, Mr. Khenjani holds an MA in War Studies from King's College, London. Professor Nazif Shahrani is Interim Chair of the Leadership Council of Afghanistan's National Trust Movement and is Emeritus Professor in the Department of Anthropology, Indiana University. As he was introduced yesterday, I'm going to stop there before you all collapse. Over to you.
Just before we get fully started, I'd also like to add that I asked Wali Rahmatullah Yarmal Sahab to join us in the panel to increase the representation of the active young generation part of the opposition. So I'm delighted that he agreed
Thank
to
you so
join
much
us.
for making this counterbalance against the
Exactly. Because it's something that I think some of our pictures are a little bit sort of false marketing. More like the way the pictures were taken. Just to get it started, and before I hand over to our distinguished Wazir Sahab, thank you for both substantively and technically, Nasreen will keep us on line. That can be ever relied on. Good. Exactly. You're ready. Thank you. The conference has basically been about the CCR, this new comprehensive roadmap. One of the great practices of the Taliban, which they've adapted now in the Afghan civil service, is that they take important...
Sorry, that's not what...
Yeah, sure. Sure. Good, 2 people looking after me. That's really brilliant. I feel safe, protected. I am really protected, and I hope every member of the panel will be so protected.
It's an Islamic thing, 1 man and 2 women.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how many men it would take. I do not know how many men it would take on that side of the scales to add up to Khanum Nasreen.
It has nothing to do with Islam.
Palabin. I was just saying that one of the interesting state innovations of the Taliban is that they've adopted certain doctrinal texts which are now compulsory in the civil service, and you have to answer an exam accurately to the satisfaction of Amr bil Maruf, or you risk losing your job. So I thought we'd proceed, before Wazir Sahab, we'd proceed to an examination on the CCR, which was supplied to you in PDF. And I take it that everybody's ready for the examination. Yeah, you've all fully read the PDF. Yes, you all read the PDF? Because, I mean, right, in other words, if you don't say you've read the PDF or promise to read the PDF, there will be an exam. But using a sort of Amr bil Maruf type arbitrary discretion, I can exempt you from the exam if you like. But just to remind that the conference was sort of around the text of the roadmap, which is intended to go some way to providing an expression of a common vision of the democratic opposition in Afghanistan. And the purpose of this part of the round table is to work out how can we collectively use the comprehensive roadmap to help to consolidate the democratic and national opposition, and therefore to help achieve a free Afghanistan. So I'll be inviting all the members of the panel to be contributing just a few thoughts on how we can take that forward. There's been fascinating discussion, and I was just saying, as Wazir Sahab arrived, I said, I am repeatedly impressed and delighted at the quality of new generation scholarship amongst Afghans, and some of them are sitting in front of me just now. That in these dark times, one source of solace is that the generation which will be ready to take the reins in Afghanistan as the dark days of the Emirate pass is at international standard. Not lagging behind or approaching it, sets in international standard. That is a source of comfort. So thank you to Zulmai and the friends at Mosaic for gathering them. But of course, the scholarship and the work of the academy and putting ideas out there and producing the evidence, that still leaves a few steps before you actually can bring it into concrete politics. And it is with great pride that I say, if I were to introduce, in fact, I don't need to read the other half of my esteemed friend Daudzai Saab's CV, I could just simply introduce him as an honourable and active member of the national and democratic opposition in Afghanistan, as are our other friends. And I'll pass over to Daudzai, followed by the others, to ask Wazir Saab, how can we use a comprehensive roadmap to consolidate the opposition and help achieve a free Afghanistan?
Thank you. Is it possible?
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Then keep the mic with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody can hear me. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let me start from that one man, one woman issue. I swear that with all the interesting background I have one wife. And I have 7 kids. 3 of them are daughters and 4 are sons. 3 daughters and only 1 son has got master's degree. The others didn't reach that level. And all the 3 daughters have got their master's degree in this particular city. So I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my son also, but I'm more proud of my daughters who are all now married because that's what the reason I say that they're young men, they might be thinking of looking for, so they're all married and they have children.
Money disappointing faces.
Well, let me first comment on the setup, because when I entered in my friend Professor Semple was giving the introduction and I was looking at you, it reminded me of my last presentation in the American University of Afghanistan in Kabul. It was a very similar setup. And that was the good old days, that was Kabul Jang, which we have lost it, but we will get it back. Let me assure you, we'll get it back. Today is 28th of September, and this is the day that we lost one leader who was a religious scholar, who was champion of peace, champion of reconciliation, and he was leader of freedom from the Soviet invasion. That's Professor Burhanuddin Rabbani. On this day, he was martyred. And because it's the Martyrs or Shuhada's Week or Shuhada's Month, I cannot say without mentioning our great hero, national hero, Ahmad Shah Massoud. I had the opportunity to have many conversations, many breakfasts, many dinners, many lunches with Professor Rabbani. But I regret I never met Ahmad Shah Massoud. And that's one of the regrets I carry on in my life. The more I learn about him, the more I regret that I should have met him and I should have learned from him. So may the soul of both of them be in Jannat al-Firdaus. But we also have to mention other shuhadas also. Particularly, I mean, we have millions of shuhadas, but particularly those we lost to the atrocities of Taliban, particularly after the 2021. Because after 2021, after the Doha Agreement, no Afghan was supposed to be killed. All Afghans were supposed to be united in one single administration, and the country was supposed to be united, but we lost them, and we still lose them. Every week, every day, some of them who get angry, part of the resistance group, they face Taliban and they are killed and they are martyred. But there are more innocent martyrs, more innocent shuhadas, that they left the country, they went to Pakistan, they went to Iran, and now they are forced back to the country. And they say there is general amnesty, but somebody comes in the night and they take them out of their home, and then the dead body goes to their family. And then Taliban say, well, this was personal animosity, we don't have control over this. These are also the great shuhadas. I wish them all Jannat al-Firdaus, and to their families, Sabri Jameel. Let me come a bit more to the point now, and to the question Professor Saab also raised, which I will come to the end of that, at the end of my presentation to that one. 4 years ago, I think it was this month, we had a conference in Muscat in Oman. And that was hosted by the organization, we call it IISS, which is a British organization, International Institute for Security Studies, which is a great organization. And within the points that you mentioned in my CV, I'm associate fellow also in IISS. So there was that conference, and the mood was very sad. We had lost Afghanistan to Taliban. But the international community was more excited. I'm talking about the autumn of 2022. Wow, Taliban are great, they are united, the whole country is united, they rule in one hand, etc., etc. When it was my presentation, I talked about differences between Taliban, among the Taliban, even as early as September 2022. And people were looking at me with surprises. And somebody asked me, but they all look united. What are you talking about? I said, if they remain united, that means they are not Afghans. So some of the participants from that conference are reminding me that, yes, you are right. Today, 4 years later, let me assure you that we, the non-Taliban Afghans, because in Afghanistan there are two groups. There are Talibans and there are non-Taliban Afghans. We, the non-Taliban Afghans, are more united than the Taliban amongst ourselves. Or in another word, Taliban are more divided than we are divided, if we put it that way. That's also true. I'm not saying that we are one organization, one unity, one alliance, one coalition. There are many different organizations, but we have a lot in common. We speak to each other, while Taliban, we know, and if you like, I can speak in more details if you're interested, they are going down. Their differences are increasing. There are instances that they were close to the fight, like we saw between the Khalqis and Parchamis in late 1970s. I think they were also close to that in 2024. But somebody intervened and they put them back on track and united them. And for how long? Because the reason that they have to be divided are much stronger than the reasons they should remain united. For us, we have more reasons to be united, to be on the same page, than to be divided. And the biggest reason for us to become united, to come together, is that we have one common enemy. Taliban have many enemies. We have one enemy, that's Taliban. That's the enemy of our people. That's the enemy of our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our granddaughters. I don't want my granddaughter not to have the opportunity that my daughters had. I want my granddaughter to have more opportunities than my daughters had. And Taliban clearly denied that opportunity to them. So they are the biggest enemy. Anyway, why do I claim that we are more united than Taliban are? Less than a year ago, a few of us came together and we said, let's create a bigger umbrella. We have umbrellas. We have the Shura Ali Muqawimat. We have the Resistance Front. We have the Freedom Front. We have many umbrellas. And some of them are together. But the grand political umbrella was the idea to come up with it. And after some debates, we thought that we could create what we call it the National Salvation, the National Assembly for Salvation of Afghanistan, which becomes NASA. That's an interesting one to remember it easier. Now, believe me that when we were forming NASA, it was so easy to form. We didn't go what we say in Pashto, Nanawate, to beg people that please come. And so as soon as we called somebody, say, yes, we are with you. We were already with you. So it was so easy to put that together. And it's moving very well. I'm not here to campaign for that. You have to learn about it. But however, I have a one-page brief in English on NASA. If you are interested, I can pass it on electronically, and you can have a look at it. You can read it. You can give your feedback. So my experience is that the non-Taliban Afghans are now more united than the Taliban. But being united is not enough. We have to have a vision, we have to have agenda, we have to have a plan, we have to have a roadmap. And I think that's the work you did. You did our job. Thank you to Zalmay and his colleague and all those who are involved in coming up with the national roadmap, which you call it. I'm sure when we have a copy of that and we take it to the Leadership Council of the NASA, they will say, yes, this is our work. We love it. They would also subscribe. I'm sure they would subscribe to that. So you made our job easier. But then we have to have the entire Afghan nation on our side. We have to have the people of Afghanistan on our side. I mean, okay, we can sell it to our Afghans in London, in the US, in Istanbul, in Dubai, and these are significantly important groups of Afghans. but it's not the entire Afghanistan. And here I want to give you my opinion in brackets that often or I see that people talk about people inside Afghanistan like if they're Taliban or they're hostage with Taliban. Both are true. There are Taliban and there are hostages with Taliban, and there are different categories of hostages. But there are people inside Afghanistan that are not hostage with Taliban. They do the struggle, and we see them that they struggle against Taliban. They have learned how to survive and how to struggle. For ease of reference and for ease of working with us, I have divided it into many categories. There's one category of youth, men and women, that I take the liberty to call them the products of the Republic, the 20 years of the Republic. Some people may disagree with me. Why do I call them the products of Republic? Back in 2001, when we arrived in Afghanistan, when we all got rid of Taliban with international assistance, hardly 2 universities were functional in the country. Kabul, Jalalabad, and a little bit of Kandahar. And in those universities, there were only 5,000 students. None were girls. They were all boys. And I visited some of those universities even before the fall of Taliban, because I was working with United Nations with Professor Semple together. We had the privilege of being able to visit anywhere. Let me share with you that story. I went to Kabul University with a delegation that had come from New York. And there were professors sitting around wearing turbans with chadar. I could imagine when I was studying in this university, I had a different image of professor. They looked different. But now, so anyway, then the topic was human rights. One of the professors started crying, literally crying. And he said, "You are talking to me about human rights. Every morning I come out of home, my children expect me back to go with food. And I go empty-handed because there is no salary. And if there is a salary, it's hardly enough for one day." So that was the university I'm talking about in 2001. 20 years later, because I kept statistics every year, that was an area of my interest. On the day we were leaving Afghanistan, the country had given graduates to 1.5 million youths. And 33% of that was girls. I wish it was 50%, but it was hard to achieve. Now, those are there. Maybe a couple of hundred of thousands of them have left the country, but the rest are there. And they're not Taliban, they are victims of Taliban. We have to find a way to work with them. And for that, we need to have a place in our roadmap on how to reach them. There is another interesting category of... what, you're the boss? Okay, couple of minutes. Now, there is another category of also, which I call them the educated elites that are pro-Taliban. They are in the country, they are educated. On the surface, they are pro-Taliban, they preach pro-Taliban agendas, but privately, when you contact them, they are with us. So I hope the roadmap that we have come up, which will become the roadmap of NASA, inshallah, that roadmap reaches all Afghans inside Afghanistan, all Afghans outside Afghanistan. And I'm with you. Again, I would conclude with a pledge that you have a serving alliance, a serving coalition, which is called the National Assembly for Salvation of Afghanistan, and that is there to discuss. I'm not speaking, or I cannot decide on their behalf, but they will discuss in their leadership council, and I'm sure if they don't adopt it, they will give you feedback to the group. And also I'm suggesting that when I was coming here, this is a very important initiative. I congratulate everybody that were part of it. But it should not be the kind of initiative that we hear it now and then once in a year we hear about it. We wait for another year, then we get an invitation that let's come together and discuss it. I think it has to be followed up. Strictly follow up. Whatever way you do it, which way you do it, that's up to you. So thank you very much, Professor Semple. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Now let's move to the next distinguished member of the National and Democratic Opposition of Afghanistan, Ustad Shahrani.
We're all democratic.
Yes.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to everybody. It's again a pleasure to be here for the last 2 days with great hopes that the challenge we were presented from the beginning was to produce a national roadmap, and that would be acceptable to all the segments of Afghan society, including the National Assembly that Wazir said talked about. Let me just say something about myself because it's why I came here. I started as a student of anthropology back in 1972 and spent 2 years doing fieldwork in the Wakhan corridor in the Pamirs, the furthest place in Afghanistan at the time. And did my research, got my doctoral dissertation done, and then the war broke out. I was supposed to sort of continue and do that kind of, small village, small tribal community ethnography. But once the war broke out, it changed my entire academic trajectory because I was no longer interested in a small community, but the country, Afghanistan. And that changed literally and truly, that I became interested in the country as a whole and what could I do and contribute to the nation so that it could get somewhere. And then came the Taliban in 2021. I decided to retire. There is no retirement in America in the universities. I literally decided myself to retire myself. Why? Because I thought we needed to do something. And that something started in October of 2001. We started a group meeting together to find some kind of proposal for solving the dilemma that the country was faced with, and that was the Taliban. It took us 1.5 years to produce the proposal that some of you, it's part of the 20 proposals that has been essentially brought down to what has been shared with you. And at the time, to be honest with you, I did not know a proposal from Afghans about the future of Afghanistan. But we shared what we had produced with everybody who was interested in. And then started the mushrooming of production of proposals and various groups. So I have at least 60 of them. Then it became a problem. We started one thing and all of a sudden it was, everybody was trying to produce of different, content, but proposals. So then the challenge has become how to consolidate these into a single one that would be sharing all their goals, their values, and also their approaches to reaching that particular goal. And so that all Afghans could identify with it and work towards its resolution. I have participated 4 times at the Vienna process. And I have also been to so many conferences that I don't want to, name them all. It would be impossible. I've been in the Istanbul Forum. and I've been to this one at least 3 times. Last year, I had proposed that let's see if we can consolidate a few of these roadmaps. 6 of them were discussed here. And insisting on that this year, may God bless the Shatsa, 20 of them are being discussed. And there's a working group. And of course, David Loyne has been a loin of us, really, in helping, help us accomplish what is expected of us. What I really was hoping, and in this conference, my hope was that what has been accomplished so far by the working group, which some of you may have read, is that it is a very solid and very laudable task of bringing all of the goals that these 20 groups and maybe more have shared, and also the values that we all admire, that we think the future of Afghanistan should contain. What we are really looking for is also how we can reach these goals. What needs to be done so that these wonderful goals and values that we have put together, we can actually put into practice. That's what I was hoping this last 2 days would accomplish, particularly with the 5 supposedly major differences amongst the 20 groups that we discussed. How can we accomplish that? And I'm hopeful that we can. Still, you can continue to help us. Your work is not finished if you don't want to. All of you have tell your own stories, your own narratives about your own research, about your own work, and so on and so forth. But how could that help us bring about that single narrative that could be a national roadmap to ending the Afghanistan crisis and bringing stability and justice to the country as such? For that, I'm going to just tell a little bit of the National Trust Movement's approach. We thought we needed to identify what the key problems of the country's political culture are. Not describe it, analyze it. We have heard enough description of who did what happened when, but why did it happen? How did it happen? What could we do to make a difference? And our diagnosis was reaching 5 things that were the key problems. One was our political culture is person-centered. Person-centered becomes family-centered. Family-centered becomes tribal-centered. Tribal-centered becomes ethnic-centered, and so on. Centered, all these compartments. The second very, very important problem was inequality in the society. Everybody wanted to be getting the most from the society. It doesn't matter. It's not unique to any ethnic group, any person. Everybody wants to get more. You can't do that. Inequality is a major problem in our political culture. Okay? So we need to address that. The third one was instrumental use of religion. Religion is not a way of life, a way of making one live honest life. But it has been abused by politicians and by religious authorities is a way to what we call in Persian is dukandar-i din. It's a shopkeeper of religion, not religion as such. So we need to address that problem, these 3 problems. The fourth one was our horrible dependency on foreign powers. Our governments have been, from the beginning, I've always said, rented regimes, not rentier regimes. Rentier regimes have something to sell, a resource that they sell to others and make a living off of that and run their. Rented regimes are taking money from somebody to work for them, to do what they want. That's what our governments have been. And when you have rented regimes, you cannot have legitimate government because they don't need people. Okay? And that is a problem. The last one is woman slavery in Afghanistan. Gender slavery. It's not gender apartheid. I'm sorry. It's gender slavery. And also slavery of men as well. Men who are denied their rights or is the same as the woman. So we have to approach differently. Our problem is rights. Everybody's rights. And especially women's rights and male rights. And we need to find a way to do that. And it looks like I'm being told that to shut up.
40 seconds.
40 seconds, okay. The outcome of this has been, and I did say this in the first Vienna process, that we have had the most unstable and violent political culture of any place. We have had 16 heads of state in Afghanistan since 1880. Six of them were murdered while in power. 7 of them were violently ousted from power. 2 of those people were also killed violently thereafter. From 16, 2 of them only died in their beds, naturally, and 3 of them are still alive. And we have had 9 constitutions in 100 years. 9 constitutions. What does that tell us? Every ruler had a constitution for himself, not for the society, because society was not a matter of concern to any of them. And of course, regimes have not ever worked for the people. They're not there to serve people. They're there to enrich themselves. And we have witnessed this in the worst form in the last 20 years. Everybody, Dawlat, this is a very interesting thing also. What does Dawlat mean in Persian? Sarwat. Means money, making yourself rich. That's what it was, that the best way to get rich is to get into government. And all of our unfortunate leaders of the last 20 years are very rich. They're living outside and they're enjoying life. But what has been the result? Taliban. Taliban are no different from the previous regimes. Structurally, the way they operate, the governments from 1880 until now, we haven't had different governments. We have had the same government time after time after time with political instability. We need to address to solve these problems. Our roadmap has to solve these problems. Make proposals that would help solve every one of these problems. If it doesn't, it's not going to be helpful to anybody. And some of my colleagues, just one last minute, some of my colleagues think we shouldn't go to the detail. Detail, is the devil is in the detail. I agree that. But we have to make proposals for alternative ways of governance in Afghanistan that is different from Taliban and from all the other 15 governments before them. If we don't do that, we have failed. So your help is to really help advise the working group to come up with solutions to these problems so that we have a roadmap that will work to get the country out of its doldrum of crises after crisis of 100 and something years. If not, it's not going to be helpful. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you particularly for the conclusion, pointing to the idea that the process of expressing a common vision of the democratic and national opposition should rest around a living document. It's not something that you achieve once and say that's it, it's finished. So thanks for suggesting that this is the work which must continue. On that theme, let's move towards the new generation. Now, amongst the new generation, I think
He is older than me.
so,
نه پنځه دقیقې دغه ما تېره ورځ خبرې کړې بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم مازدیګر مو په خیر ټول تقریبا خسته سوي یاست دوې ورځې مسلسل خو د دې تر څنګ مو ډېر څه زده کړه ما خپله ډېر څه زده کړل مطمئن یم چې ټول به ډېر څه زده کړي یو وارې بیا ځای لري چې د نشاط صاحبو همکارانو څخه که پردې تر شام دي د ټولو څخه تشکري وکړو زحمت یې ډېر وایستی کور مو ودان تشکر
I know that it's 2 days that you have been in the room and you might be very tired, but this process has been a process that I've learned a lot, and hopefully some of you like me have learned from the discussions today. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank me and those and Mosaic and those invisible. Actually, I have not done as much as those who are invisible. It's my comment.
او ان شاء الله ښه لاسته راوړنه په دې لرو چې تقریبا شل نهاده په دې کې که نظامي دي که غیر نظامي دي مدني ټولنې سیاسي احزاب سیاسي ګوندونه او هغه څومره مختلفوالي اختلافي شکلونه چې یا جوړښتونه چې په افغانستان کې دي ان شاء الله د هغوی ټولو نمایندګان وه په دې کې هم میرمنې هم اقایان او د مختلفو ذهنو فکرو خاوندان او د نسلي لحاظ هم مشران او ځوانان اکاډمیک خلک علمي خلک جنګي ټول تقریبا موجود وو دا هغه څه دي چې افغانستان یو کوچنی مثال غوندې و د اقوامو د لحاظه هم د سمتو د لحاظه هم تقریبا ټول خلک دلې او ټول وګړي موجود وو یو ښه لاسته راوړنه دا ده چې تقریبا ویل کېږي چې دا شل نهاده یا د شل ادارې یو نتیجې ته رسېږي او یو ځانګړی روډ میپ لري دا هغه څه دي چې ښه خبره ده د خوشحالۍ خبره ده چې 4 کاله وروسته افغانان توانیږي چې دغه یو روډ ماپ یو مشترک روډ ماپ لاسته راوړي اوس څه سوالونه یا څه مسایلو په دې مې چې آیا د کلي یو ځوان چې همدا اوس یا په کلي کې یو نجلۍ یو خور زموږ ستاسې فرض کړو په بامیانو کې زموږ ستاسې یو خور ده او د دغه ننني وحشت ځپلې ده د ژوند د ټولو الف څخه تر یا د ټولو هغه په ننني عصر کې څه دي د هغه ټولو څخه بې برخې ده زموږ دغه څه به هغوی ته د قناعت وړ واوسېږي چې 4 کاله بعد موږ دې نتیجې ته ورسېدلو چې حداقل یو روډ ماپ تیار کړی سو بیا هم که قناعت ورکړی سو یو ډول چې موږ هم په اګزایل کې وو تصادفاً هر څه وسپله پر ځای نه وو مشکلات ډېر وه سرګردانه وو حتی موږ خپله په فامیلو سره یو ځای سوي نه وو یو ځای کې بل ځای کې د هغوی دوهم سوال به دا یي چې ښه د دې وروسته څه کېږي
Basically, the comprehensive composite roadmap is a combination of 20 proposals, and it includes political parties, political currents, or several organizations, which includes women, which includes also young people. Also, in terms of intergenerational differences, it can include maybe the generations which are elder than a governor and his own generation. So the possibility of bringing all these roadmaps and proposals together in one proposal, this is an achievement. And after 4 years, in a village, a woman or a young man who is expecting a vision for future of Afghanistan, we might have to provide them this, but despite the problems that we have had in the exile, for example, families were separated from each other. There was loads of issues that we know. But the question remains is that what next?
خدای مکړه داسې نسي چې د 2024 کال په سپټمبر کې موږ بیا دلته کښینو او بیا هم پر د روډ میپ نه تکمیلېدو بحث وکړای شو موږ اړتیا لرو چې ډېر ژر په ډېر سرعت مخته ولاړ شو افغانستان کې شاید یوازې همدغه شل نهاده نه شل به نور واوسېږي او یا به ځینې شخصیتونه واوسېږي چې هغوی به نهاد نه لري مګر موثریت لري د باندې به یې موږ به لومړی د دغه روډ ماپ د محتوا د هغوی سره شریکه کړی شو. موږ اړتیا لرو چې په سرعت مخته ولاړ شو. زموږ هره ورځ ضایع کېدل، موږ هلته د میلیونونو انسانانو د امید د ضایع کېدو په معنا دی. زموږ هر ساعت ضایع کېدل، موږ هلته د یوې نجلۍ څخه په کندهار کې، په بامیان کې، په بدخشان کې امید اخلو، د ژوند څخه مایوسه کېږي.
In terms of next step, I hope next year in 2026 in this conference we should not be sitting and talking what next. We have, yes, brought together 20 proposals. Maybe out there are 20 more proposals. Maybe there are political figures who do not have proposals, but they are important people which need to be engaged and included in the discussion. We cannot waste a moment of a young person who lives in a village in Kandahar, in Badakhshan, or any province of Afghanistan. So we have to be very, very speedy and we have to work hard.
په دې کې به مې موزایک فاونډیشن څخه یا ځینې نور نهادونه چې په دې برخه کار کوي، ویانا کنفرانس یا نور، خصوصا چې اوس موزایک د دغې رهبري په غاړه اخیستی یا تقریبا پر هغه لار روان دي، د سرعت د غوښتنو یا د سرعت د زیاتوالي غوښتنه به مې د دوی څخه وي چې کال ته نه کولی شي 2 میاشتې کې دا وکولی شي، حتی په میاشت کې وکولی شي. ځکه زه بیا ټینګار کوم، یوه ورځ ضایع کېدل افغانستان 10 کاله شاته بیایي. So 5 was mine, 5 is his.
The translation. So,
زه د لغمان والی وم.
So there is a joke, and those who do not understand the context, Laghman province is very well known that the people there are very clever, and he was the governor of Laghman. So anyways, coming back to the point, the governor says that organizations, currents like Vienna process for democratic Afghanistan, other processes, for example, Your Excellency's process, and other, for example, Mosaic that has taken the lead of this roadmap making, they should not waste time. In 2 months, they must have something further to report.
خوشحاله په دې یم وزیر صاحب محترم چې تاسو په دا وروستیو کې چې خبر شولو چې ناسا ته راغلي یاست. یو بهترین لاسته راوړنه د اړتیا وه. د په جوړښت کې ما هم د دې ویاړ درلودی چې هلته واوسېدلی شم. تر ټولو ډېره دغه د روډ ماپ ګټه چې د دغه موزایک یا د نن د جلسې څخه راوځي، تر ټولو ډېره مرسته ستاسو سره کوي. ځکه د افغانستان لوی اکثریت، لوی ترین امید همدغې شورا ته وو. د ډېر وخت په تېرېدو سره متاسفانه هلته یوازې موږ په فاتحواني باندې مصروف پاتې شولو. هره ورځ یوه فاتحواني وه، هره ورځ د یو چا یو یاد و، او بل موږ یو مشترک مسله نه درلودل. یوه هفته یوه غړي ویل چې طالبان دښمنان دي باید ورک شي، بله هفته بیا بل کس ویل چې دا سراج الدین حقاني ډېر د سولې سړی دی، دا د جنګ سړی هم د سولې سړی هم دی، راځي د دې سره سوله وکړی شو. بل کس یې دی ویل چې نه، په حکومت کې ونډه دې راکړي یا د ونډې مساله راسي، نور د دې مشکلاتو څخه هم تېرېږي. زه فکر کوم چې دغه روډ ماپ به ډېره مرسته د دوی سره وکړی شي چې یو مشخص څه ولرو. که چیرې نشي کولی، زما د ځوان نسل په توګه تقاضا دا ده چې ستاسې د ټولو مشرانو به موږ قدردانۍ وکړو، احترام به مو همیشه په تاریخ په زړه کې را سره وساتو. لطفا لږ تر لږه دا اعتراف وکړئ چې موږ ستړي یو، وخت مو تېر کړئ، قرباني مو ورکړله، نور مخته شئ. موږ او ملت په 2 حالاتو کې هم تاسو ته منتظر یو، ځکه یو ډېر لوی لاره مو نیولې او لاره بلاک، ځکه نړیوال طبعا چې تاسې تجربې لري، علم لري، او تر ټولو مهم ډېر دا چې ډېر پیسې لري، لکه شهراني صاحب چې وویل. یا دغه باید حل شي چې دا نوی نسل مخته شي، دا کې په جنګ کوي، کې په رضا کوي، کې په زارۍ کوي، خو خپله خبره به وکړی شي. او که نه دغه بهترینه موقع ده چې مشترکاً ستاسو د تجاربو څخه استفاده وشي، ځکه تاسو د 3 دورې دا لیدلې ده، او د دغو ځوانانو د علمیاتو، انرژیو د دې څخه استفاده وشي، او افغانستان کې بیا هم پر دې ټولې انرژي راټوله شي، یوه ورځ ضایع نه شي، او خپل هغه آزاد افغانستان ته ورسېږي.
The biggest political formation is under the National Assembly that His Excellency Daudzai is representing, and he says, I had the honor of being a member of that assembly as well. And for context, it's about 72 organizations and political parties that are under one umbrella. And his basically submission to His Excellency Daudzai is that during the meetings, unfortunately, every week it is commemoration of someone who has died, passed away, and also some small talks, not substantive, but also when there is talk, it's about, okay, the Taliban is our enemy, a group says, and we should fight the Taliban. Another group says, oh, Jalaluddin Haqqani actually is a good guy. Sarajuddin Haqqani is dead, sorry. Sarajuddin Haqqani is a good guy, we should make peace with him. Or other, so his submission to the older generation is that they have a lot of experience. They have interacted with the world. They have a knowledge of politics more than the young generations. But if they think that the urgency is there, that the young generation who have something of substance to give, maybe they should be given the way, because their road also should not be blocked of these small talks and discussions.
خلاص ډیره مننه تشکر خوشاله شوم چې ډیر نوي دوستان مې ولیدل نوي دوستان سره معرفي شولم زړو ملګرو سره مې ولیدله ښه وخت ولرئ تشکر ژوندي اوسئ.
Thank you so much. Meeting new faces, new friends, and wish you a lovely time. Thank you. Oh.
But this one works, so we're not going to change it. Thank you, Wali Saab, particularly for the concluding remarks that the young generation want a roadmap, not a roadblock, and expressing the sense of urgency. In that spirit, let's continue with another esteemed member of the Democratic and National Opposition.
Young Democrats.
And the representative of the young and revolutionary branch of the opposition. Khenjani Sahab.
Thank you. I really hope that I would be committed in 5 minutes.
Not very long,
Well, thank you so much. Allow me to begin by thanking Mosaic Global Foundation and Shotzer, you and your colleague, for bringing all together that we could share our emotions, thoughts, and opinions. I think one of the fundamental necessity of our time is that we should communicate with each other, and we should talk, and we should mourn together. For those who you might not know, actually last week, Nishad Sahib and his wife lost their mother. And aside sharing our condolences, I was thinking last night with myself that this family has a lot to teach us. While they are quietly mourning about what's happening in their personal life, they don't give up, and they continue to carry their public responsibilities. Thank you so much, my brother, and thank you so much, my sister. We pray for all who have lost their life, specifically to your mother, our sister. Coming to the topic of conversation in the past 2 days, I should begin to change this environment. The Taliban changed the idea of dawlat, which you translated, Ustad Buzurgwarma, to money and wealth, to dawlat. Daw dashnam and lat latikot. I think we have to. It's a new one. Yeah. I think we have to take that in consideration as well. That's not about exploitation, it's also about suppression, it's also about humiliation, public and collective humiliation of the people in Afghanistan. I would also take this opportunity to thank and appreciate the work of the working group, specifically my two good friends. David, I don't know, I could call you guys friends or not, because you introduced Wazir Sahib as your good friend and not me. There is something happening. I hope, David, you would compensate that in your later remarks. And everyone else, Shariati Sahib, everyone else, for putting, I think, a wonderful document there. Specifically, I love the composite term. In Farsi, it's translated Amiza. I think it's beautiful. I love it, this Amiza. And I really hope that that's going to be translated in Farsi and Pashto very soon. It's translated from Farsi. Okay.
English was the translation.
Oh, I just received in panel's email the English version, my bad. When it comes to subscription, my boss, Ahmad Massoud, has already publicly put a subscription not only for the content on behalf of the National Resistance Front, but we are also wishing to continue this process of consultation and improvement. I really, really wish that the working group could listen to all of us and improve what's needed to this. And I think this process is more important than even that one of the product. I really hope that we would take it to the same level in the next conference. I would touch up on very brief 3 points. The first point is, I think we are in a situation that needs to be exercising realism, managing our expectation and sharing our responsibilities. We have very good ideas. I think the fundamental question is how these ideas could be translated into an action, and how we could connect our good ideas to the 43 millions of people who are just waiting to see what's going to happen next. That's the question. The practical way that I see that there is a set of bullet points in this roadmap. I really hope that the working group could turn these set of bullet points into action plans, and that they could share it and take the lead and bring more political buy-in in the course of time. I think that's important. My second very humble appeal is, we are in a generation, I think, is stuck in the mentality of past 20 years. We have to grow up from the mentalities of past 20 years that the changes would come from outside Afghanistan. With all due respect of our true friends present, there is no miracle coming from outside Afghanistan. We have to accept this sad reality as soon as possible. And we have to shape our future by courage, by sacrifices, and by sharing our responsibilities together. I may also take the responsibility, this opportunity, and humbly request everyone that we are all a living archive of good memories and bad memories in the past, but we are in a new environment. This new ecology needs a new rules of the game. We cannot sort out all the differences, all those bad negative memories of past 20 years, but we would be able to shape our future, and I think that's where we need to invest our energies. Lastly, Professor, we have to humbly also find a balance between exercising roadmaps and actions. I think it's very valuable to write 100 pages of literature, roadmaps, documents about Afghanistan, but I think we have to also be mindful of the fact that the people are expecting us action, not more books from specifically those who are out of Afghanistan. I really don't know how to do it. We feel a little bit comfortable with what we are doing at the moment. We haven't sat down, we haven't waited for anything. We have started something with, this resistance, specifically taking a risk of a military resistance, is not going to be calculated by any algorithm mentality. If you put it on the paper, you would not know how you're going to be winning it. But as a Muslim, as a person, I believe there is always a greater will into the actions. And I believe, as Wazir mentioned, the Taliban will going to be diminished forever, and the people are testing the last days of the Taliban. I don't know how long would that take. With that note, I really wish all the best everyone. I'm so sorry to be after 2 days I had a very long political statement. I really hope that you would not take it as a political statement, as a humble note. But if you're so sad with the time and with the energy of past 2 days, please do share that courses between me, David, and Michael Semple, because he is the last guy that's going to talk here.
Could you later reflect
later on in the discussions.
Absolutely. I already asked the Vienna National Commission, which was formed recently, led by one of our great and talented friend, Ambassador Mahmoud Saikal. As a member of Vienna, we have already reached them out and told them, I think we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel again. There is a job done, and we have to see how we could put our political weight around and ideas, and we would move forward. I really hope that you may, and the working group could kindly connect himself to what has happened. I know that this roadmap is also entailed the roadmap of Vienna, the primary roadmap of Vienna, which is a good one. I really wish everyone all the best. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm sure that was not 5 minutes, that was 8 minutes, and I'm so sorry, Professor.
To sum up, how we can use this consolidated roadmap to support the cause of legitimate opposition and achieving a free Afghanistan. It's important to have a mandate for the working group to continue the work of keeping this consolidated roadmap as a living document and one which does genuinely reflect the position of the democratic and national opposition. So I would humbly suggest to Nishad Sahab that while winding up the conference, that you could seek a mandate from the members of the conference to task the working group to continue its good work in consultation with those active members of the opposition who generated the original documents. For that mandate, the work is on the substantives, or the Tawlidi Matawa. And this is where I'm proposing that we don't go to a question and answer session this late time of the day. Instead, when summing up, Nishad Sahab, if you could give the address, say which Mosaic email address every one of us can be in touch with to be part of the ongoing conversation by the working group, so that anything that you want to suggest or contribute, that you can put through to the address with which Nishad Sahab will share in just a few minutes' time. We've heard from the participants in the panel about how there is a coming and going between the working group and actually the constituent members of the opposition. I think of that as like ratification. It's important that, for example, that Khenjani Sahab check back with his national leadership, and that's not only like a one-time ratification like that of the ICC, that this should be an ongoing process because it's a living document, and the working group will keep in touch with the groups. Coming back to also your point around, the millet is not waiting for more documents. It wants liberation. So I would conceive of that, because if we're talking about the emergence of a collective identity of the democratic and national opposition, there is such a thing as collective implementation. That if Daudzai Saab's friends manage to do some basich on the ground in contact with the fruits of the Republic who are on the ground in Afghanistan, are not actually taslim to the Taliban, and are prepared, perhaps inspired or guided by some of the scholarship and research of Dr. Manazar, are they prepared to be engaged in effective civic protest or indeed sabotage of the Taliban system of government, that victory for you is a consolidation of the overall opposition and another step in the march towards a free Afghanistan. Also, I think as intellectuals gathered here, we know that communication is also fundamental. And I hope that collectively and individually, we can contribute to the process of communicating the ideas, which are in a rather dry language, put into a roadmap, communicating them in ways that capture the imagination of Afghans, that relate to the real life problems that they face, such as hunger and the long list we could go through, so that they sense that indeed this roadmap is not just, again, sort of like what AI can do, putting together some words from lots of documents, but actually expresses that which they value and that which they want to achieve. So it can indeed be a roadmap for resistance, a tool for Basich, for mobilizing the nation. And I think the last thing, something which perhaps we can contribute to through this roadmap process is consolidating a sense of identity of Afghanistan's national and democratic opposition, so that we'll see, as well as the dry words, we'll have shared symbols and language, strengthening the ability of the opposition to mobilize the nation and achieve the freedom which is so desired and urgently desired. And I would just like to add, with offering some words from the struggle in Ireland to the struggle in Afghanistan, thinking what I, as somebody who documents this strange Taliban state capture and building process, no one has a right to fix the boundary of the march of a nation. No one has a right to say to their country, thus far, as Amr bin Maruf is now saying, as Khalid Khanafi is now saying, no one has a right to say to their country, thus far shalt thou go and no further.
I've been